right, so the other day we looked at how gender is sometimes used in literature, particularly nonfiction literature. So we're going to take a look at how gender is used in the media, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to look this specific time. We're going to look at what happens. We're going to use our own lens, and we're going to look at what happens in advertising. So the very first thing I want you to do is open this up, and here you're going to see an example, okay? So in this case, this is Rosie the Riveter, very popular in the 1940s when all of the soldiers went to war, the women went to the factories, and this was a big campaign about women in the United States, taking the role. So, this is an example of an advertisement for Mr. Clean, and you can see that it was used to motivate women to join the war, okay? And then so here's the actual image, and on the right-hand side, what you're going to do is you're going to make a connection or make an inference, right? So connections are actually using evidence to support a claim, and an inference is sometimes things aren't explicitly or straight out given to you. So if I said that every morning my wife wakes up at 5 a.m., she does yoga, she eats her breakfast, then she puts on her business suit, she grabs her briefcase, and she heads to court where she goes to her chambers and puts on her robe. What do you think that my wife does for a living? Now, with that example, a lot of you probably said, well, your wife is a judge. And that would be correct, because I never flat out said my wife the judge, but rather I gave context clues. I gave clues as to what she does by saying things like heads to court, goes to her chambers and puts on a robe. So you made an inference that she was or she is a judge, which she's not, by the way. She's an art teacher, but one can dream. So you are going to look at these documents and you're going to make inferences about them. Now, there's a couple things that I want to talk about. Number one is you always see this word in English, and it's called synthesizing. Okay? Synthesizing is when you take a concept or an idea or an image and you take it apart, and then you put it back together to make something new, right? Now, to synthesize is to make something new by combining different things. So a lot of times what you're going to do is you're going to pick and choose different pieces of literature, different pieces in image, and you're going to develop your own. So one of the nice things about synthesizing is that it's unique to everybody. Now, if we look at the Calvin and Hobbes, sometimes we have to read behind or between the lines by using what it said and what you know to figure out what's going on. So go ahead and take a minute and look at that cartoon. So you can figure out what happened at the end, right, by making an inference. Now, nowhere does it show exactly what's happening, but you can make an inference that he popped a balloon on his head, all right? So anytime that we are working on our essays or we're working on these projects, there's a couple things you can do. Number one, ask yourself, what is a connection that you've seen or read about between what you see in the media and what you've read on gender stereotypes? So think about the images that you've looked at, and then think about the articles that you've read. Also, ask yourself, do you need to do some of your own research, right? Now, one of those things that you can do is that a lot of times they have, there's a big push for realistic images in advertising. So instead of every single person on the beach weighing 93 pounds and being a runway model, they have real life moms, they have real life kids. So I want you to think about that, right? Now, when you synthesize, all right, we're going to use the language in there. So make sure that you try to use some of this language from the right column when you do checkpoint 2. All right, so this suggests that, reading between the lines, we can see that, etc., etc. So once you go through this, what I want you to do is I want you to look at this resource that's called Gender in Advertising, all right? Now, you're going to see absolutely tons and tons and tons of images on here, all right? So there's various ads that they're going to portray gender roles and stereotypes. You're going to make connections and inferences and then synthesize those resources, right? So what common trends might you find? All right, common female roles. They are mothers. They have been objectified or sexualized. Often little girls play with dolls. They're overly emotional. You need to have a perfect body, and if it's not perfect, then you need to change your body to be perfect, right? Now, what do we know? What kind of stereotypes are about men? Number one is that they care about one thing and only one thing. They're controlling. Often they're the hero. Often they're portrayed as being dumb. Think of any TV show. Think about your favorite TV show. How is the male, right? They struggle with fidelity, but they're powerfully and physically strong. So as you look at these, I want you to think about, what you can find from all of them. So there's all kinds of different images here. Now, once you complete that, you are now going to go back to this document, and I want you to find at least 4 examples from there, okay? And then once you do that, you can send it to me, and we'll check it and go back and forth. So, all right, thanks a lot. We'll talk soon.